Hey everybody, it's Miss Krista, and I've got our next STEM lesson that we're going to do today. We're going to learn about desert plants and animals and how they do something called adapt. And we're going to learn about what that means in just a second. This is a picture of our beautiful Sonoran Desert, and it looks to me like this is filmed just to the west of the Desert Museum. And if you guys get a chance to go there, you really ought to go. It's beautiful, and you can learn so much about our beautiful desert there. So what does it mean to adapt? Well, adapt means to adjust fittingly to different conditions. And another way of putting that would be you learn how to live in your environment. Depending on how much water you have, how hot or cold it is, you learn to live and to make it there. So this guy is called a desert horned lizard. You can see all those spikes on his back. Look at that. Now, if he was coming up against a bug or something that might be smaller than him, he looked pretty fearsome. I'd be pretty afraid of him. And even something bigger that might want to eat him might be kind of, scared off by all those spikes and all that body armor. Might think that he might do something to you. But when I grew up, when I was a little girl, rather, we used to call these a horny toad, and they're not toads, they're lizards. But you can see why we would call them a horny toad. They've got horns all over their bodies. And when my kids and I go hiking on Mount Lemmon, a lot of times we'll find these up there. They like the colder climates, and they do better in colder climates than some of the other desert lizards that live here. And they have up to 48 babies all at once. I can't even imagine. I don't think I've ever heard of anything having so many babies all at once. But as big and bad as he looks, he's actually very tiny. So he can be up to a little more than, an inch. You see how wide my fingers are down here at the tip? They're about maybe one more finger. And that's about as long as they can get, as far as being small goes. And as far as being big, they can be up to 4 or 5 inches long. So let's check out our next one. Here we go. Ooh, this is Picacho Peak. And some of you may have been up there. It's on the way to Phoenix. So what are the conditions like in the Sonoran Desert? Well, the biggest one I want to talk to you about today is that we only get 3 to 18 inches of water a year. And compared to other places in the country, that isn't very much at all. And that's what makes us a desert, because we don't get very much. Now, here's someplace else in the world. This is a place called Benton County, Tennessee, and this is where my family's from. Annual rainfall for this area is 53.8 inches, and that's a lot more than we get here in the desert. Can you see any difference between Tennessee and Arizona? Can you see any differences? How does it look different? Well, they've got this big river here. This is called the Tennessee River. And they've got all these big trees that are all green and they have leaves on them. And we typically don't have that where we live, do we? So how do you think that lack of water might affect our plants and animals here? Well, here's an example. This is a prickly pear cactus, and this isn't a very good shot to show you this, but if you want to see why it's called a prickly pear and you guys happen to go on a walk or a hike, take a look at the pads, the green part, and they are in the shape of a pear. And they're called prickly pears because they have all these thorns or spines all over them. My family calls them pickers, but that's what those are, and those can really mess you up if you get tangled up in one. So this kind of cactus, as with all cactus out here, they require very little water to survive. They're covered in spines to protect itself, and it produces very juicy fruit. And in fact, if you guys go out this summer and you go on a hike, take a brown paper bag with you and a pair of tongs and let Mom and Dad help you with this. But we like to pick the fruit, and then we bring it home and we rinse it off in the sink really well, and then we throw it in the blender and we whirl it around until it's just all ground up and juicy. And then we strain that through some kitchen towels, flour sack towels or cheesecloth, and get all those pickers out of there. And there's tons of seeds inside. And once you strain it twice, what is left is this beautiful juice that's the color of the fruit right here. And we like to mix it with lemonade. That's one of my kids' favorite things to do in the summer, is to make prickly pear lemonade. So, and again, these do not require very much water. Now, take a look at this one. Have you ever seen a prickly pear cactus with a bite taken out of it? Look at that. Look what's eating it. Look back here. Look over here. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's one that's just gone. So what do you think might eat all that with all those big thorns all over? I wouldn't want to eat that. That'd get stuck in my mouth and hurt. But obviously something's eating it. Do you think it's an insect? Could it be an ant? No, not with that kind of a big bite. What do you think could do that? Well, let's find out. It's the javelina. Check this guy out. He's thinking about it right there. He's trying to find the one he wants. And this guy down here is just going to town. Now, I want you to think about this. Look at all the other shrubs and plants that are around where he is. You've got a nice green something growing back there. And you've got some other plants growing there, some grasses and things. Why wouldn't he be eating those instead of eating something with all those horrible thorns all over it? Well, let's find out. Prickly pears are a great source of water for desert animals. And inside the pads, there you can see how it looks like a pear. See that right there? It looks like a pear. You take a look at those roots. They do not grow very deep. They stay close to the surface and they grow wide. So do you have any idea why? Why don't you talk about that with your mom or dad or grandpa or grandma for a minute and see if you can figure that out. Okay, I'm going to start telling you why. Okay, so this is a desert wash, and it's one of our dry riverbeds that you may see. And remember, as we've gone over in class a bunch of times, don't ever, ever, ever play in a wash, because you never know when a flash flood might come. And if you remember what that is, I'll tell you in just a second. I'll show you. Okay, here's a monsoon. And look at all of that water that's coming out of that cloud. Look at all that. So where do you think that water goes? Think the ground absorbs all of it? Nope. Come on. There we go. This happens. This is a flash flood starting, and as you can see, it's dry here, and it's coming pouring out of there, and they move fast. So if you're down here and you don't pay attention to what's going on, this can wash you away. So always stay out of the washes. And here's one of those dry washes after that flash flood hits. Can you see that? Look at that. It's even got like rapids in there, little waves that'll kind of mess you up. So don't play in washes because this can happen. But when we get a flash flood that comes through from a monsoon, not too long after, the wash will look just like this again. Now, why is that? Why does it do differently in Tennessee than it does here? Because see, when their rain comes down, it makes these beautiful rivers and lakes and ponds, and the trees are all different back there. Why do you think that could be? Well, that's a pretty tough question, but I'm going to show you. All right, this is soil back in Tennessee. And as you can see, it's got this dark layer on top. This is called organic material. And what that means is it's made up of basically dead stuff. It's made up of dead leaves. It's made up of dead grasses. It's made up of maybe a tree fell over or a branch fell off and it rotted and it It kind of sunk down into this, and all of this is dead stuff. When animals die, they become part of this too, as gross as that sounds. But it makes for good topsoil to grow stuff. This down here is just silt and clay, and there's water way down here. But this top layer here is almost like a sponge when it rains, and it can absorb the water better than what we have here. This is what our soil looks like. It's a little bit different. And as you can see here, we've got some sand on the top and some rocks. And this white stuff in here is called caliche. And that is almost like cement as you dig down. It's like trying to dig through a rock. It's not very good. So we will talk about that more in just a little bit. And I've got an experiment to do with you. So we've got sand on the top. Sand cannot absorb water very well. And so because of that, the water comes rushing down the washes, and it doesn't stay, it doesn't stick. And it looks like this again. We have all these dry riverbeds. So, but how do cactus adapt to that? Well, here's a saguaro, and I want you to take a look at the root system down here. See all this? Notice that the roots don't go down very deep. They tend to stay close to the surface up here. Now, why do you think that is? Well, because the more surface area that this can reach, it's going to be able to catch more of that rain that just kind of floats away on top of it. So that's how the saguaro gets its water. It's smart, and that means it has adapted to these dry desert conditions. It doesn't have to have the roots go way down where there's also water. It catches it up here. And here's our javelina. Why does he like the cactus? Because it's a good source of water for him. Again, I want to show you this. Can you see the difference between these two saguaros? Oh, here's Hazel. Hazel, you helping? All right. So the difference between these two saguaros, take a look at this guy. He's kind of chubby, right? As compared to this guy who's tall and skinny. And the difference is, I'll bet you just about anything, this picture was taken in the summer when we've had a bunch of monsoons and the rains have come. And this guy, looks like this picture was taken maybe at a different time of the year when we don't have a whole lot of water. Forgive my shaky hands here. I'm doing the best I can. All right. So let me tell you why that happens now. Why some saguaros are chunky and why they chunk up and then why they get skinny again. Okay, inside a saguaro, we have this. Okay, these brown things that are sticking up, those are called the ribs. And if you ever see a completely dead saguaro out in the desert, you'll see the ribs. It's almost like the skeleton of the tornado of the saguaro. My apologies. And then this white part in here is called spongy flesh. And if you look down here, this person actually has a piece of it that they've taken out. And if you are ever lost in the desert, my dad always told me that you could cut open a cactus and this stuff right here is like the sponge and it absorbs all of that water. So if you're ever lost out in the desert, you can cut into a cactus and suck on this stuff and kind of chew on it and the water will come out. And then we've got, see these lines that are in there? Those are the pleats, and they can get closer together when there's not a whole lot of water for them. And then when there is, they move farther apart. And that's why we get chubby saguaros like we just saw. And here's another picture of those pleats. Can you see that? It's almost like an accordion. They can move out and they can move in. And the green stuff, that's the waxy skin, and that helps to protect the saguaro, and so do the pickers on here, or the spines. That helps keep some of the animals from eating it. All right. Another way that animals adapt in the Sonoran Desert is through camouflage. Can you see the scorpion here? Well, he doesn't want you to see him or anybody else. He wants to stay hidden. And so does this rabbit over here. Look at how this rabbit is almost the exact same color as the ground around him. Look, we've got light and dark and light and dark. So camouflage is very useful, and it's a way that animals have adapted to our desert. And their motto is, if you can't see me, you can't eat me. And that is the end of that. So let me close my laptop here and set it back. And we're going to do our experiment. So here we have, remember the caliche I told you about? Let's see if I can get this thing to focus. Focus. There we go. All right, so there's caliche. And there's an experiment you can do where you can find out if it's really caliche or not. Okay, sometimes it just looks like a clump of dirt or another kind of rock. But caliche is actually made up of something called calcium carbonate. And if you are to drop something on it, there's something you can put on there called, some kind of an acid. Hydrochloric acid. If you drop hydrochloric acid on it, it will bubble and fizz. Well, I don't have any of that, but I do have this little mason jar that has some vinegar in it, and it will do the exact same thing. So if it's really caliche, we'll watch it bubble and fizz. So let me move over on this side. Okay, now be real quiet and listen. Won't be very loud, but you can hear it. You see the bubbles popping all in there? Let's do another one. There's the bubbles. See them fizzing? That means it is definitely caliche. It's got calcium carbonate in there. Pretty neat. So if you want, you can go through your neighborhood or look in your backyard or go on a hike with your mom and dad and try to find some of this stuff. It's not white. It's kind of almost like a sand color. But if it looks kind of chalky and is about that color, you can take it home and see if you actually got a piece of caliche. All right, and before we leave today, forgive the blurry camera here, I'm going to read a book to you. Focus. There we go. Called It Rained on the Desert Today. Look at that monsoon. Isn't that beautiful? My favorite part about monsoons is the smell afterwards, after the rain has come and gone. Rain in the desert smells different than rain in any other place in the world. And it's my favorite smell. This summer when it rains, why don't you go outside and smell that lovely scent? All right, so here we go. A sudden wind rattles the windows, catching me by surprise. Holding my breath, I pull back the curtains and gaze into the sky. Is it getting darker outside? Are storm clouds crowding to darken the day? Is it finally here? I wish my heart would stop pounding, so I hold my mouth open, just a little, like my father told me, so that I might hear better. There in the distance is a low, rumbling sound. Is that lightning's voice I hear? Yes, it is. It's thunder singing the good news. Rain will visit the desert today, it says. Today we will honor the monsoon's return after what seems like an endless march of scorching days. I race to the front porch to watch the storm's arrival. As I stand looking out, I can see my neighbors gathering. Old people, young people, big people, little people. They all wear smiles, and laughter dances about their faces. Once together, we reach for each other's hands and wait eagerly for the storm to begin. There are the saguaros waiting for their drink. Look at that. A blinding flash and a thunderous crash startle even the bravest among us. Our hearts pound in our chests as the booming echoes roll across the clouds. My mouth goes dry and the hair on my arms stands up straight toward the sky. The rain starts slowly with giant water drops, raising small clouds of dust in the yard. Then Mother Earth sighs with a huge gust of wind and the bottom falls out of the clouds. The rain has finally arrived. Oh, look here, we've got a desert tortoise. Looks like he's trying to take shelter from the rain under his shell and next to this cactus here. It brings thunder and lightning crashing and flashing. They come so loud it sets my bones to shaking. So thick, the desert turns fuzzy gray and disappears. And look over here, we've got a rabbit taking shelter from the rain under a bush. Flashes of lightning brighten each smiling face as we lift our voices in thanks for rain, the giver of life. As our voices melt together, I cannot tell the difference between the music of the rain and the voices around me. Time drifts by and the rain slowly lessens. Soon our voices grow still and the desert reappears as if by magic. And look here, we've got a mama raccoon and her babies following, and they're trying to get a drink out of that wash before that water disappears again. The smaller children charge into the muddy yard, dancing in the now gentle rain, slipping and sliding, falling and rising and falling back down again with laughter for their song. Then someone says they look like mud babies born from the earth herself, and we all laugh because we know it's true. As the rain slows to a soft, steady rhythm, its pattern matches my heart beat for beat. Finally, the rain stops. Brilliant sunshine breaks loose from the clouds and slices the sky with a golden beam of light. A glorious rainbow bursts across the eastern skies. Soon, Father Sun silently slips behind the mountaintops, and the horizon and the sky are painted with the blazing fire colors only he knows how to mix. We each breathe deeply of the rich desert scents that ride on the wings of the damp, gentle wind. Oh, look what's drinking out of here. We've got some kind of a toad. We've got a dragonfly and a rabbit. They're all eager to get to that water. As darkness creeps over the land, thousands of insects start weaving their songs into the distant thunder, followed by the croaking melodies of summer's first rain toads emerging from the mud. One by one, the children are thus lullabied to sleep, washed clean by the rain. They are toweled dry, bundled with care, and carried home to their soft, cozy beds to dream their enchanted dreams. As the moon starts its climb across the sky, I slip into my own bed, and just before sleep comes to carry me away, I say a little prayer of thanks for the rain on the desert today. The end. And here's that picture. Look how pretty. The clouds are all gone except for those few. Well, that is the end of our lesson today. I'm so glad I was able to do this with you, and I miss you all very much. And I will talk to you again next week, and be on the lookout for some fun activities I'm going to include in this email today, okay? All right, love you guys. Stay safe. Bye-bye.